We'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to the compliance briefing for Buy American requirements, we're talking specifically about LED lighting, and with us today from the great state of Maryland and Rockville of all places is Ed Burch. Say hey, Ed.
Hello. How's everyone doing today?
Yeah, it's awesome. And we were just talking about Ed Ed's decided that he's going to move 10 minutes away. And it'll probably take 10 years off his life when he does that because it's a crazy thing to do. But anyway, well, we want to welcome everybody here. There's a lot of folks. In fact, we have folks even beyond this group, but certainly folks from the VA, from GSA, from the Army, USDA. I was looking at the list. We have folks all over the place that are interested in this, and we appreciate you all joining us, so welcome here. And a real quick disclaimer, this event is not affiliated or endorsed by any agency and is provided to the audience for informational purposes only. All participation in this briefing is voluntary, and any engagement by you and anybody else is not considered an endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor. So now we can talk, right? So, and with that, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you open up that panel, you can ask us questions by typing it in the bottom in the questions bar. You can also raise your hand and let us know what you'd like to discuss. And also, if you dialed in on the phone, it's really difficult for you to get our attention if you're on the phone. But if you're looking at, if you can get in there and raise your hand, we'll be able to unmute you if you put in your audio pin. So that's great. You can also email us at the GovSupport at alg-usa.com, and we will get back to you. If not in this session, we'll make sure that we get back to you. One final thing, if you like the way that Ed and I look today, you can grab that little panel doodah thing. It may be above, it may be on the side, and you can make us bigger, or you can make it disappear altogether if you don't like the way that we look, and just look at the presentation itself. And the reason why we're here, let's just go through the agenda real quick. There's initiatives and regulations that continue to come out, and some regulations that are being removed, as we know, right? So but there are new issues and agenda points for meeting BAA or Buy American Act requirements, and we're seeing more and more of a bend towards incorporating ROI. If you're not familiar with ROI, it stands for Return on Investment, and ultimately what we're going to be talking about today with specifics, right? So if you're talking about return on investment, it's meeting efficiency requirements as well, and we're talking about LED lighting fixtures today and replacing LED tubes, if you will, or fluorescent tubes in office settings. We'll go through some questions and answers, and we'll talk about protecting your agency and going out for these things. So before we actually get going, there's a couple things that we're going to be doing today, and one of these is we're going to be asking some polls so that we can make sure that we stay on track with what you need and the types of things that are important to you. So you're here because you want to learn more about the Buy American Act. A lot of folks here for that alone. The new administration initiatives, you can pick as many as you like, by the way, or you're interested in learning more about LED technology. You may have an upcoming requirement for LED, or maybe your boss made you come. So any of those things are fine. Pick whatever you like, and we'll make sure that we get information that is pertinent to you as we go through the presentation. And I think most of these we'll be able to get to. So with that, we'll give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll close that out, and we'll share these results with you so that you know we're all in this together. So you want to learn more about the Buy American Act? Got it. So we also have the compliance issues and things like that. So awesome. We do appreciate you all being here for that. Ed, tell us a little bit about Axis and Patriot Tubes, which is the primary product offering that we're talking about today. Tell us a little bit about that.
Axis LED is a Ohio-based company, as you say. Our primary product line, we were a manufacturer's rep and saw a need for the Made in America products for the federal government especially, as well as state and local municipalities requiring Made in America technology, assembled in America. And so we started a product line specifically for that, to meet that niche. Mainly it is commercial and industrial settings, interior products, and we do have an exterior product line now. Our website is Patriot LED Tubes, which has our entire product line, but it's the main industrial, commercial. We do high bays, we do T-LEDs, we do troughers, panel lights, street lights, wall packs, you name it. Pretty much anything but the screw-ins. So that's kind of the only thing that we do not do. We have warehouses across the U.S. Arizona and Illinois is not only our warehouse, but also where we assemble all of our product line. Then we have also just a warehouse in North Carolina. The T-LEDs come with a standard 5-year warranty. We have a 10-year warranty available. And then all of our fixtures come with a 10-year standard warranty. And again, all of our products are BAA, TAA compliant. We have documentation if it's required for the job in order to prove that our products do meet the necessary requirements.
And that's what's most important, is that in this particular instance, and why we're talking about it today, is the importance of meeting those BAA requirements that are happening there. So what is the BAA? The BAA is the Buy American Act, and it actually, when we started doing research on this just to see where the foundations were, we have the Buy American Act of 1933. So this is nothing new, but a lot of folks aren't really concentrating on it until the new administration comes in, and next thing you know, it becomes a very hot item. We also, that revolves around manufacturing and assembly, as Ed was talking about, in the United States, and there's also the Employ American leaning that's happening now as well. This doesn't negate a lot of the government efficiency mandates that have happened. We're going to talk about those a little bit. And we also have new administrative executive orders. Most of that was leaning towards the pipeline, but we can see the trends that are happening, and there's more to come, especially as it comes with manufacturing and assembly here in the United States. The other component that we're seeing from a contracting standpoint is the aggressive use of your return on investment language into a contract. This is something that you're very familiar with, Ed, with the Energy Savings Performing contract with ESPC. Tell us a little bit about that before we jump in, because I think there's some things that folks would like to know about. What does ESPC stand for? And we'll go into a little bit more detail, but give a high-level overview of what that is.
It's a shared savings program. So what it is these large ESCOs come in. They provide all the financing, so you don't have to have the budget to replace a building retrofit, a campus retrofit, wherever you're retrofitting. So you don't have to have that bulk amount of capital required to do the entire retrofit. These ESCOs come in with an ESPC contract. They provide all the funding, and you pay for the lights and all of the upgrades in your energy efficiency portfolio through the energy savings of the project. So you're net positive from month one. You save more than what your payment is going to be for the entire contract. So it's a win-win for everybody. The ESPs, they just have the financing available, so you don't have to get a budget together to come up with the capital up front.
And that's an interesting model, because that's something that the federal government doesn't usually do, but it is starting to come. We're starting to see that as new contracts are coming out. And real quick, some information on the Buy American Act, and we'll get back into that particular piece on the ROI, because I do believe that's one of the strongest aspects of what you have and the Patriot Tubes and what they bring. So the Buy American Act talks about being produced in the United States or assembled in the United States, which is making changes to the actual physical materials. There's court cases behind that we can give you as support documentation to show you how that happened. But then we started seeing some more as the new administration came in. You're looking at, like, the construction of the American pipelines. This is just January 24th, and this also provides a 25% price protection over TAA compliant. So there's pricing protection for Buy American within the federal government that's already in place. Now, we don't want to have to spend 25% more if we don't have to, but you have that cushion and you have the ability to be able to exercise on that. As far as government efficiency mandates are concerned, these go back many, many years, just like the Buy American Act does, but we have a new executive order from just, what was that, last week? To improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability of federal agencies. A lot of this applies to agency, the agency structure, but it also has implications on all of the components for efficiency and effectiveness. And there couldn't be a better way to gain efficiencies for this, in addition to the sustainability over the next decade for the plan for Executive Order 13693, which has not been rolled back. So the idea is this actually applies to the sustainability and the efficiency and effectiveness of the government, which is built upon the Energy Independence and Security Act, which is not going to go away, and the Energy Policy Act of 2005, as well as 1992. So you can see the building blocks that have been happening over the years, and a lot of these are going to stay in place. There's no plans to pull these back that we know of, that we've seen. All of the indications say that these are going to stay. So here's a question. Have you ever used an ROI? Have you ever used ROI language in a contract before? A lot of folks have never even heard of the term. We've been talking with a lot of contracting folks in the federal space about this particular subject, and we find that there's a lot of folks that have never even heard that particular acronym. There's a bazillion acronyms in DC, as you know. So let's just take this real quick. Just take a quick poll, and we'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and take a look at this, Ed. Isn't this something? It's almost 50-50, but it's 56 to 44, right? Almost half the folks have never used an ROI language in a contract. And this is something that we know is going to be coming down the pipe, if not already, because more than half have done that as well. So we can help with that. There's a couple of pieces that we can supply for you as well. So let's talk about what ROI in contracts look like. So if you look at your energy savings performance contract, tell us a little bit more about that. Like you said, it's a funding vehicle. It's a process that you can use. And you mentioned this the other day, Ed, and I kind of gravitated toward it. Just some other things that I've seen as a service model. It's almost lighting as a service, right?
That's correct. I mean, like I said, the energy savings pays for the cost of the lights. Typically, they are a 5 to 10 year contract, usually around 7 to 10 years, and you save enough energy monthly to pay for the new lights and additional capital left over for other budgetary needs. So it's a win-win from month one, and it's guaranteed savings. So they actually guarantee the savings to cover the cost of the contract.
And that's a really interesting thing, because we're not used to guarantees either. I mean, we're used to performances, right? In federal contracting, we're used to performance measures and meeting measures, but this is quantifiable, which scares some folks, and then has great implications for others. So it's a funding vehicle. It's a process that's used. Energy savings pay for the cost of the improvements, and when you're developing your proposal as a part of your response for the RFP or whatever the contracting mechanism is, that ROI plan is part of the proposal. And you mentioned something that was really interesting. Let's talk about this for just a minute, because tubes alone, you're seeing 24 to 36 months return on investment, and that can be built in, and you're saying that it can be guaranteed?
That's correct. That's correct. And that's in the commercial space. Governmental, it depends on the installation cost. But if you're doing a plug-and-play tube where you literally are pulling out a fluorescent tube, you're putting in a LED tube, there is no requirements for any type of wiring changes whatsoever. The lights it's just like changing a fluorescent tube for a fluorescent tube, except it's an LED tube now. It uses half the energy. The light quality is better. There's multiple benefits to LEDs, but the ROI on those, without any rebates, and there's rebates typically in every state, Without any rebates, it's between 24 and 36 months. So rebates a lot of times will knock it down where it could be under 12 months.
And that would be for folks that's probably non-federal stuff.
Government can qualify. The Department of Defense typically does not, but other facets of the government do get the rebates, because we've done jobs at NIH, we've done jobs at other government buildings, and the rebates do apply to them. Really?
That's interesting. I had no idea. And talk about the fixtures, because if you're actually doing rewiring and replacing, you have some. There's a really interesting light panel. The one on the top is a really interesting panel.
So with fixtures, it's tubes. You're going to have the same look. It's going to look identical to how you currently your lights look. It's just going to be LEDs using about half the energy. If you want to have a new look to the space, which a lot of folks do, then they put in typically different fixtures, and the fixtures will give an entire new look to your lighting package. But with that, you have a lot more work. You have electricians coming in. They have to get rid of all the fluorescents, recycle, pull a fixture out of the ceiling, put in a new fixture, and so obviously electricians are paid typically a high wage, and therefore your ROI extends to 3 years to 5 years.
So most of that's built into your installation costs, and even then,
installation cost is more than half. The installation cost is more than half of the cost.
So with that, but you can still do your ROI. You can still build that in, and is that also guaranteed?
Yes, if you're doing the SPC contract, it is guaranteed savings. The federal government, my understanding is, as long as it's under a 15-year ROI, they'll do it. So lights, I mean, obviously, are way under 15 years, so it makes sense. Absolutely. And our fixtures are guaranteed for 10 years. So not saying that they're going to go out in 10 years. The fixtures are going to last 15, 20 years, but they're guaranteed for 10 years. So if any of them go out at all, it's a full replacement. Give a new fixture, install it, everything. So there's no risk.
Perfect. And that's the kind of thing that we're seeing. Again, that ROI with the teeth in the ROI model in the contract that provides for the full replacement and the guarantees. We're definitely seeing in the market. So we asked this question last time. This is a good one, because I will tell you this. A couple of the issues that I had originally with LEDs, me personally, was I took 2 bulbs and I put them above the refrigerator, and I had my wife standing underneath of those just to see what she looked like. This is way back in the day. And it was like, whoa! It was like that Seinfeld episode with she's beautiful one moment, and then it's like Scary Frankenstein the other. So with that, we have lighting quality issues, but the cost and budget, the quality of technology, the color differences, that was my main issue back in the day. But these are totally different, aren't they yet? They're totally different. They have very natural lighting now. Better than fluorescence, in fact, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you have the BAA or TAA compliance, or it's something else. So let us know about that, and we'll give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, and everybody's still cranking it out. And that looks like good. So some folks are in problem with that, but the biggest issue that folks have today is the BAA or TAA compliance, which is great for you guys to be here, because we do have a way around that, right? So that's one of the reasons why we're here. So let's go through each one of these real quick. So the costs associated with this is typically 4 to 6 times the cost of a fluorescent replacement, right? Because so the actual physical component of the bulb, because fluorescents are pretty cheap, right?
They are, especially now that they're getting phased out. So you have a lot of supply and demand. You have a lot of supply, not a lot of demand. So people are literally giving them away.
Yeah, but for now. But I'll tell you one thing.
They're going to start making.
Like incandescents, you can't find incandescents cheap anymore. And not only that, the ones that you find are not that good.
That's correct.
Yeah. So then we have agency cost justification models, and I'll talk about this for a minute, because ROI is not recognized. A lot of folks have never even implemented that into a contract. And then the reallocation of funds, and this is something that's happened over the course of time, and you have to check with your agency and this for yourself to find out how you can do the reallocation of the funds. But the service model helps you get there. That lighting as a service model helps you get there because the costs still maintain similar, but then you start to see your savings, especially over time. So current contractual obligations for whatever the process is for your supplies. Some agencies actually have contractual obligations that have them locked into those things. So, but we can check on those, and we can help you check on those as well if you need to. So let's talk about the quality. The new technology you mentioned, the quality is a lot better than it was just a few years ago, and it's getting better, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah, the quality. I mean, the quality's perfect now. I mean, and it's improved, like you say. It becomes the efficacy, which means the lumens per watt. So that's the energy efficiency of the lights. I got into lighting probably about 3 years ago, LEDs, and at that point it was under 100 lumens per watt. Fluorescents are somewhere in the 70 to 80 lumens per watt range, and now standard technology is 150 lumens per watt. So it's almost doubled in 3 years, and it's becoming more and more efficient. The one thing I have to mention is that BAA compliant products have been so much more cost prohibitive than the overseas product line, and that's one thing we pride ourselves in, is that our price points are very, very similar to overseas models. So you can get a BAA compliant product for an overseas price, and that's one thing that I mean, it used to be double, triple, sometimes quadruple the cost, but that's not the case any longer.
And that's good news for everybody because it meets all of those requirements. So we also mentioned this earlier. You mentioned the warranty limitations because they weren't very good originally, and now you're at 5-10 years. Color, the old LED technology, there is a difference from fluorescent, and you kind of touched on this. So when you're doing the replacement models, we'll talk about that in just a minute. Maybe if somebody asks some questions about specific samples of product, how we roll it out, but they do differ from fluorescent, right?
No, the color's the color. I mean, the color is a Kelvin. It's on a Kelvin scale. So if you've got a typical fluorescent is 4,000, 4,100 Kelvin, and so we can match it identically. The thing that's different is fluorescents degrade pretty quickly over time. So if you have a fluorescent that's been in there for 5 years, it's going to be very dull. The color's going to be the same, but it's going to be the brightness of it. And so when you put a LED tube in, they degrade very little over time. And so, in 5 years from now, you're still going to have the same amount of light coming out of that bulb as you did the day you put it in. With fluorescence, you may have 60 or 70% of the light that's still coming out of there. So that's why people think the color difference is the problem, but it's not. It's the brightness of the lights.
Interesting. And then we have the BAA and TAA compliance, which most of the folks have an issue. That's one of the biggest issues. So, and glad that we're here to be able to talk about that specific issue. And let's talk about what these are T5, T8s, and T12s. These are standard size tubes. And you mentioned this before, Ed, that it doesn't require anything else but taking that bulb out and put a new one in. Is that right?
Yeah, there's different types of the T-LEDs, they call them, which is T-LEDs. So T5, T8, T12 is the fluorescent. It's the width of the tube, and so T12s aren't even made any longer for fluorescence. That's an older tube. But the T5s and T12s, we have a plug-and-play tube that literally you pull out the T5 or T8, you put in our tube, and it lights. You don't have to do any type of wiring. The government, though, a lot of times wants to do external driver tubes to do that. So there's different types of tubes, and the plug-and-play is the most cost-effective to do a retrofit because you literally have no electricians that have to wire anything. You just pull out a tube, put it in a tube. To buy a case of tubes, you could have your current custodian put them in, and they'd work perfectly. Then there's external driver tubes, which you have an external driver outside of the tube. That's much like a ballast for a fluorescent tube. And then you have line voltage, where you literally the power goes directly to the tombstones at the end of the fixture. You put the tube in it, and it powers up. So we have all the different models, but like you say, the plug-and-play is the most cost-effective and the quickest ROI.
Very good. And this can be done on a room, floor, building, or an entire campus. So we can talk about that a little bit more if anybody wants to get into that. But it's excuse me, it's absolutely, like you said, it could be just one, But most of the time, you're going to replace all of the tubes in a room. But there's models to be able to do all those.
How it usually works is we send samples to people. They may put in four bulbs as a sample in a room just to see the light quality. Leave them in there for a few weeks. They like them. Okay, let's do the floor, or let's do a building, or So no one's going to out of the gate buy 10,000 of them. It's a build-up process.
And so let's talk about some of the benefits. You've touched on some of these already, but let's talk about what this really means, because a 50% reduction in energy usage that's not a little.
No, and like I said, because the efficacy is getting greater, it's becoming less than a 50%. It's becoming, more than a 50% reduction. So a standard LED tube of T8 is 32 watts. You can replace it, because of the increase in efficacy, a 12-watt LED will produce the same amount of light as a 32-watt fluorescent. So that's getting close to 60-70% reduction.
And we look at these warranties: 50,000 hours, 100,000 for the fixtures. You mentioned the fluorescence, the ability to handle its and keep its brightness. You're talking 7 to 15 years now.
Yes. Yes, and that's, if you do 100,000 hours and you divide it by 24 hours in a day, it's like 17 years of around-the-clock operation. So
love it. So let's talk about folks that may have a lighting upgrade requirement, replacement requirement, or maybe a brand new requirement. When are you anticipating needing to do that? We had a couple folks that have to do it immediately. There's and looking at some of the folks that when they logged in. Cynthia with the Forest Service needs retrofitted. She's looking at proposals right now. Stephen has a current RFP right now, so we're looking at those as well. So let us know what your plans are, so that we can jump on those as well. So I'll give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there we go. So there's a lot of folks that need it right away. So we'll make sure we respond to you as well, and get you that. Thanks for participating in those. It helps keep things moving, but it helps us pay attention to what you want us to. So any questions? We have a couple of questions that have already come in, so I'll get to those. But open up that panel on the right-hand side. You can ask us whatever questions you like, and we'll do our best to be able to answer them. If we can't answer them right this minute, we'll make sure we get back to you as soon as as humanly possible. So let me open up the questions here. Sky's asking, will we get the slide deck after the webinar? You certainly will. We'll send out a follow-up for that and make sure that you have that as well. And are you adding the maintenance savings into your bid to come up with your ROI, or just the retrofit? Great question, Jason. So the answer to that is it depends on what the RFP is requiring, but the answer would be yes in either case, wouldn't it, Ed?
Yeah, typically you do look at the maintenance savings, because you don't have the lamp continually changing the lights. You don't have the ongoing cost of the fluorescence over the 10-year period. So you have to include, because it's costs that you would have had to spend to buy new fluorescents that you're not having to spend over the next 10 years. So you have to take that into account, because it's a real cost.
You're absolutely right. And I'll say this personally, that when I have a ton of recessed lights, just because of the way that the house was designed, and I was forever replacing those bulbs as regular bulbs, and I literally just finally lost the first one after 2.5 years in the main area. So that's the first one. Here's another one from Jason. Are the Patriot LEDs or any of the Patriot LEDs LDL, DLC, or Energy Star rated? Great question.
Yeah, yes, they all are. They're all UL. They're all DLC. TLEDs don't have the Energy Star rating. That's for screw-in bulbs. But we have the DLC, which is the required. That's the governing body over these. So yes, all of them are.
Okay. So Cruz is asking, how do you get a product BAA and TAA approved? Great question. How did you do it, Ed?
We actually got the Department of Justice, as well as the SEC, came in and they came to the factory and gave us a letter approving them.
All right, my program is ESPC, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This comes from Alan. Question 1. The ESCOs choose the lights. Gov does not specify which lights to ESCO will use. Therefore, can't the ESCO not make a simple choice to source from Mexico, a free trade, the TAA compliant company, right? Or rather than China? The answer is potentially yes, they can, up to now, right? Because that's the question is, if the ESCO is making the determination to spec the lights.
It depends on the requirement of the job.
Mm-hmm.
If TAA works, then TAA is fine. But if it's BAA, no, they cannot. They cannot. And the ESCOs do typically identify which products they're going to buy. And so we deal with a lot of ESCOs. However, if we are able to bring a job to an ESCO, then obviously they would spec our lights for the job.
All right. Is there an always every time type of light lamps that are only made in China as of today, and it makes HQ approval of a programmatic exception of BAA fairly easy to obtain, or does it make it? So the question is, because almost all of the products are manufactured in China, or they believe that it is, then they're saying, well, there's no way to get around this. But you're saying that that's not the case because you have product that is assembled here in the United States and it is BAA compliant, so you don't have to.
That's correct. It's no longer the case. We are, though, one of probably only a handful, very small, maybe 2 or 3 companies that make the TLEDs here in the U.S. But yes, that was the case at one point, but that's no longer the case.
And Todd's asking for the contact information for ROI, detailed information, and cost estimation. We'll get that to you for sure. Why are there no screws in BAA compliant? The answer is screw-ins. Sorry. What's the answer? The answer is there may be, but it's not you.
It's not us. I don't know if there is or not.
So we don't know why, other than in most instances, if you're talking about office buildings, it's mostly the fluorescent tubes. Let me ask this. What are your opinions on the required standards for external LED lighting in the Middle East, and ambient outside temperatures can exceed 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and recessed luminaries can reach temperatures of up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit? Wow, that's a great technical question, Mason. Do you have the answer to that, or you want to take that offline?
Yeah. You can send me an email on that, but I mean, I don't believe it's an issue.
Okay. Patrick says, I'd like to talk with you later. Please make some time. I'm in Cincinnati, and I do come to Columbus frequently. So we'll make sure that works. How about that? Any additional questions we'll get to? Do you have vendors in Hawaii? Can you support Hawaii?
Yes.
All right. Yes. The answer. Do you have a vendor? That may be somebody that's asking if they can become a vendor. So we would love to talk about that as well, because we do have some folks that popped in as well. So if you have any additional questions, please ask those. We'll make sure we get to those. If we missed it, we'll make sure that we circle back around. We'll make sure that we do that. So real quickly, you mentioned this earlier about the process for doing a room or a floor, or just what is the process for being able to replace these?
Send me an email. Tell me what you're looking to do. Tell me what type of fixtures are there. We can get samples out to you if we need to. We can come out to a site visit, do a light count, figure out, and put together a whole proposal for you if it's a serious inquiry, and give you ROI analysis and everything for the project. But it's simple. Just shoot me an email. We'll start from there. I can tell you, you tell me what you got in there. I can send you spec sheets of what I think would be a good fit for you, and then you can make a decision.
That's great. And for smaller projects, credit cards work, and so you can do that for tubes and things like that if it's a direct replacement. When you get into a larger installation for a building or a campus, usually there's a lighting audit that's assembled, and you can handle that as well, can't you?
Absolutely. We can do as little or as much as you want. I mean, we are a manufacturer. Our standard deal is we deal with lighting distributors. We deal with ESCOs. We don't typically do all of the nuts and bolts. But my background is retrofitting, so I've done everything from lighting lines to turnkey. We can do whatever, as little or as much as you want.
And some of those important things revolve around the warranty support and the ability to get that. So why push for BAA LEDs? First of all, it meets the new and the upcoming federal mandates. Whatever comes out for the Buy American, if it's BAA, it's going to meet those initiatives for both those and the initiatives for the cost savings. Two things that are very hot in the new administration: Buy American, cost savings, and the ROI. It also meets the guiding principles for sustainable federal buildings, which isn't going to go away, and it meets the federal green challenge to reduce the electricity. You do that right away because you have 50% reduction in wattage. You have it when you do the replacement with LEDs. And if you look at this, lighting represents up to 30% of building operational costs. So if you reduce that by 50%, you already have a 15% savings across the board in your building operational costs. Huge, right, Ed?
That's correct.
So with a rollout strategy, you mentioned this as well. You can actually do a pilot where, hey, try it out. Throw them in there and see what you think. Make sure that it works in your environment, that the quality's right. You can verify the ROI documentation as I don't remember who asked for it. Somebody asked for that already. And it can start with a small application and even be a micro purchase if you need it to be. And you mentioned this also, Ed. Installation coordination. What is that restricted to? Is that just Ohio, or is that all over the country?
No, we install all over the country. I mean, we've done jobs probably in every state. So,
yep. And you can team. You're already BAA compliant, but service disabled, 8A, women-owned, whatever it happens to be for social or economic, and it can be incorporated in underneath an existing IDIQ or BPA if that is required. We can work those relationships. So real quick before we get done, because we're getting close, to stay out of hot water, and this is great. One of the questions was, that they've been able to do the bypass of BAA compliance or TAA compliance because there hasn't been qualified vendors to be able to fill the role. So make sure that it is BAA and TAA compliant. It is working, and you can do it. You can make sure that that's in the documentation that you put out for your RFPs. Verify those warranties and make sure that those companies can deliver on those warranties, and verify your ROI claims to make sure that they're meeting the claims that they say they can. A lot of times there's not a whole lot of follow-up to make sure that you're actually getting the savings that you have, but if you build that into your savings, make sure that guarantee is in your contract, that you can go back and make sure that that contractor is meeting those goals. So most important, choose the quality vendors. And you didn't mention this. Do you do build to spec as far as if there's a particular specification?
We will. As long as it's a large enough opportunity, we will definitely build whatever. We have the ability to custom build. So if you need a certain efficacy, if you need a certain product that's not a certain fixture that you guys want or spec for, you can't find it anywhere, you send us. As long as it's a large enough quantity, we'll do it.
Awesome. And then you got to verify the lead time. How long does it usually take for you to take an order in and get it to the site?
It depends on if it's a stock item or not. If it's a stock item that is a pretty commonly used product, typically it's about a 2 to 3 week from order to delivery. If it's depending on quantity, I mean, if it's a 50,000 piece order, you're probably looking at 5 to 6 weeks.
So, and then verify that past performance. Make sure that they can do what they say, and establish and use BPAs. A lot of contracting folks, this is one of the things that you'll buy over the course of time. Set up a BPA, and it gives you fast access to your vendors. And with that, we will ask one more question on what you need help with today. Do you have a specific product that you'd like to take a look at? Are you looking at whether this will work within your organization? Do you need spec sheets? There's been a couple questions for spec sheets and price lists. We'll make we're going to send those out anyway, but let us know if there's something specific. Do you need a lighting audit as part of a preparation for an RFP, or if there's something else that you would like to talk about? Let us know what those are, and we'll make sure that we reach out to you and get you what you need. And we're going to leave that open for another 10 seconds, so go ahead and let us know. And thanks again for all the participation. We've had great participation in these polls, and that's because you're paying attention, actually answering them. So that's great. And we'll leave that with 4, 3, 2, 1, and there you go. So with that, that's what a lot of spec sheets that they're asking for, which would be great because that would help everybody, right? So we'll hide those results and we'll get into the follow-up.
One thing quickly for the spec sheets, you can download all of our spec sheets at patriotledtubes.com. So we have all the spec sheets there. Price lists we don't post there, but for price lists, just contact me. But all the spec sheets are available online.
Fantastic, which makes it easy for everybody, but we will get you links to those as well, so that you will get a follow-up with the presentation, with the PowerPoint, the Q&A. We'll assemble all the questions and make sure that we get those answers for you so that everybody has those. The supporting documentation, including all of the referenced materials for the executive orders and mandates that are coming down on everybody's head. We'll get you Access LED group capabilities and some procurement options, so you can buy that on GSA. We didn't even mention that. GSA, your products are on GSA through some of your partners, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And we'll give you links to that.
Yep, we'll give you links to that. And any additional documentation that you folks are asking for, we'll make sure we get that out to you as well. And if you have any additional questions, please, please, please send us an email at govsupport@alg-usa.com, and we will do our best to get that answer to you as quickly as possible, and we'll have some follow-ups on some of those. So if it's something that you had that's critical, let us know. We'll make sure we're on the phone with you as soon as we can possibly be on the phone. Any additional comments or suggestions for folks as we let them go today?
No, not at all. Just please reach out if you have any questions whatsoever.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ed. Thanks for joining us and for letting us know how these LED, the Access LED and Patriot tubes can meet the BAA requirements, which is really, really good stuff. Absolutely important in our in the new administration for sure. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And thank you for joining us as well and spending a few minutes with us today. We appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of the week.